The storm outside was violent, loud enough to shake the old apartment building. Yet the sound that jolted Ethan Carter awake wasn't thunder. It was a frantic knock at his door. The clock beside his bed glowed 12:03 a.m. in the darkness. He sat up abruptly, his chest tightening with the kind of instinctive alertness that comes from years of living alone and trusting no surprises at midnight. The knock came again, sharper this time, and something in the rhythm of it, urgent, desperate, sent a strange worry crawling through him. He hurried to the door, heart pounding, and when he pulled it open, everything inside him stopped cold. Because standing there in the hallway, soaked from the storm and trembling, was Lila Hayes, the woman he once loved, the woman he once planned to marry, and the woman he hadn't seen in almost 3 years. Her eyes carried something that made his breath catch. A mixture of fear, heartbreak, and a silent plea for help that words couldn't have expressed. She swallowed shakily, her face pale, her arms wrapped around herself as though she had run through more than just rain to get there. Ethan froze, gripping the doorknob, unable to speak as 1,000 memories surged through him at once, memories he thought he had buried for good. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that remind us how deeply human we really are, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. It truly helps us create more stories for you. For a long, suspended moment, neither of them moved. The storm raged behind her, wind whipping her hair against her face, but she didn't seem to notice Ethan finally stepped aside, wordlessly, and she walked in as though her legs barely supported her. The warmth of his apartment contrasted with the icy rain clinging to her clothes, and he instinctively went to grab a towel, but her trembling hands lifted slightly as if to stop him. He paused, realizing she wasn't shivering from cold. It was something deeper. Something inside her was fractured. As she stood there in the soft hallway light, he could see exhaustion etched into the delicate lines around her eyes. See the way she clutched her bag like it was the last solid thing anchoring her to the world Ethan had spent years trying to outrun the ghost of her memory. The nights they stayed up whispering dreams to each other. The afternoons baking cookies they both pretended didn't taste terrible. The way she used to place her hand on his chest to feel his heartbeat because she said it made life feel steadier. All of it had lingered in his life long after she walked away. And now she was here again, standing in his doorway at midnight with a look that told him she was carrying more pain than she could bear alone. He didn't know what to say, didn't know if he should ask why she was there or if the question itself would hurt her more. So he simply watched her as she slowly sank onto the edge of his couch, her shoulders collapsing inward like someone finally too tired to pretend strength. He sat across from her, close enough to show he was there, but far enough not to overwhelm her. The room felt weighted, as though the air itself understood that something fragile was unfolding. Lila's breathing was uneven, her fingers twisting nervously, and when her gaze finally lifted to meet his, Ethan saw something that startled him more than her sudden appearance. Shame. A deep, aching shame that made her look smaller than the confident woman he once knew. Something had happened. Something terrible. She didn't need to speak for Ethan to feel the truth. The signs were all there. The bruised vulnerability in her expression, the exhaustion that wasn't physical but emotional, the crack in her voice when she finally exhaled as though she had been holding her breath for years. It wasn't the heartbreak from their past that brought her here. It was something darker, something she believed she had no one else to turn to for. And despite everything that once stood between them, despite the years of silence, Ethan felt his chest tighten with an old, familiar instinct. He wanted to protect her. The story of what brought Lila to his door didn't come out all at once. It came the way broken confessions usually do. Slowly, haltingly, unraveling with trembling breaths, Lila had moved to Chicago 2 years earlier, hoping for a fresh start after her breakup with Ethan. For a while, things had been good. She found a job at a small marketing firm, made a few friends, even adopted a golden retriever puppy who helped her feel less alone. But then she met someone, A man who seemed kind at first. Someone who held the door open and brought her flowers and told her she was special. Ethan listened with clenched fists as she described the way charm slowly turned into control, how compliments turned into criticisms, how quiet suggestions turned into strict rules. She didn't notice at first, not until she realized she was apologizing for things she had never done wrong. By the time she understood what he truly was, she felt trapped. She tried to leave several times, but he always found her, always promised to change, always reminded her of the ways he said she had failed him. And last night, everything escalated. He didn't hurt her physically, but the emotional cruelty, the accusations, the shouting, the threats to destroy everything she had built broke something inside her. She grabbed her keys, ran out into the storm, and drove aimlessly until the only name she could think of, the only person she still believed would open the door for her, was Ethan's. As Ethan listened, a slow burning anger filled him. Not at her, but at the world that let gentle people like Lila suffer quietly. But he also felt something else rising inside him. Responsibility. Not because he owed it to her, but because he loved her once with every part of him. And a small, painful part of that love still lived inside him, refusing to die even after years apart. Seeing her so broken awakened that old instinct to hold her together. He moved closer, gently placing a blanket over her shoulders, and although her body didn't stop trembling, he sensed a shift, like being here was the first moment she felt safe in a very long time. The hours that followed were soft, quiet, and strangely sacred. Lila talked until she couldn't talk anymore, her voice fading into exhausted whispers. Ethan listened without interrupting, without judgment, without reminding her of the past. He made her tea, though she barely drank it. When she finally leaned back, exhaustion settling into her bones, she whispered something he almost didn't catch. She didn't know who she was anymore. That simple admission shattered him. He saw in her eyes the reflection of someone who had fought too long, too silently, and lost herself in the process. As the storm outside softened, the fragile calm inside the apartment grew stronger. Ethan wanted to tell her everything, that she wasn't weak, that she wasn't alone, that she didn't deserve a single moment of the pain she endured. But what she needed wasn't words. She needed presence. So he stayed beside her until her breathing steadied, until the trembling stopped, until the weight on her chest seemed a little lighter. By the time dawn touched the window, Lila had fallen asleep curled on the couch, wrapped in the blanket like a child finally safe after a long nightmare. Ethan watched her, realizing that this unexpected midnight knock had changed something he didn't know needed changing. It reminded him that love sometimes circles back not to rekindle romance, but to heal wounds that only familiar hands can reach. When Lila woke in the soft morning light, her eyes held something new, fragile hope. She apologized for showing up, for burdening him, for everything she believed she had ruined. Ethan simply shook his head, and though no words were spoken, the message was clear. She wasn't a burden. She never had been. And maybe, just maybe, this moment was the beginning of something new, something healthier, something real, something grounded in understanding rather than past mistakes. Over the next weeks, Ethan helped Lila piece her life back together. He helped her move out of her apartment, change her number, adopt a safer routine. She started therapy, began journaling again, found work at a new company where people treated her kindly. Slowly, color returned to her life, and in that healing journey, the two of them formed a bond deeper than what they once had. Not romantic at first, just human, profoundly human. A connection built on empathy, trust, and the simple truth that sometimes life brings people back together not to repeat the past, but to fix what the past broke. As winter melted into spring, Lila's smile grew genuine again. She laughed more. She breathed easier. And Ethan realized that healing wasn't a sudden event, but a quiet, steady unfolding. And somewhere along that journey, something unexpected happened. They began to fall for each other again. Not like before, not with the reckless optimism of youth, but with the grounded tenderness of two people who had seen darkness and still chose to reach for light. If this story touched your heart even a little, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us continue bringing meaningful stories to life. Before the story ends, tell us in the comments. Do you believe people come back into our lives for a reason? In the end, Ethan always remembered that midnight knock, the moment everything changed. Because sometimes, healing arrives not as a miracle, but as a trembling figure standing in the rain, hoping someone will open the door. And sometimes, the simplest act of kindness becomes the beginning of a new life, a new love, and a second chance that both hearts never knew they desperately needed.